So what happens if you kick God out of your life? Does he stay? Does he go? We're going to answer that question coming up on Pastor Bob's Coffee Break. Every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future. And our future is based on the cross. That's the intersection in our lives. And we're going to talk about what happens when we get to the other side. Drinking some Headbangers Brew this morning, Holy Cacao. That's the name of the blend. Great stuff with cacao beans and good flavor. It's one of our older blends, our oldest blend actually, besides the regular coffee. It's the oldest blend of with flavoring. So good. And Holy Cacao, just saying. Well, that and all of our mugs, our t-shirts, our posters, all of this stuff right here. wearemetalwearefamily.com. Dear Pastor Bob, many churches teach that God will never leave us or forsake us, as the Bible tells us, but that we can use our free will to leave him. In other words, if we tell God we've had it and no longer want him, we can kick God out of our heart, and God will honor our wishes and leave us be. Is this biblical? And some say that once we kick God out, we've committed apostasy and are forever doomed to the torments of hell. My question is this: will God keep his end of the bargain even if we don't? Great question. Great question. So, folks, the Bible tells us that once we receive him, to those who believe on his name, he said he gave the right to become children of God. What does that mean? What kind of rights do I have? Where do I go from there? But it even goes beyond rights. And let's look at this for just a minute. Galatians chapter 2 and verse 20, reading from the New Living Translation, which is what the Metal Bible is. Great translation, by the way. And he says, "My old self has been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God who loved me, gave himself for me." So it says my old self has been crucified with Christ. It's dead. It's gone. It's no longer alive. I've become a new creation in Jesus Christ. The old is gone, the new has come. 2 Corinthians 5:17. What does that mean for you and I, folks? It means that God has forgiven our sin. All of it. Even our sin of unbelief. And can I tell you that people commit this all the time because we go through tough things. I remember growing up, and it didn't happen often, but I remember sometimes just getting really furious with my parents and their decisions when they wouldn't let me do something that I wanted to do. Yeah, I know. You've done the same thing. And you say, "That's it, I'm leaving." Or, "That's it, you're no longer my dad, you're no longer my mom." And in our minds, we're divorcing the family. That's it. I'm glad that doesn't work, aren't you? And, that's something everybody goes through. And sometimes you feel that way in relationships or whatever it is. But especially in a family, there's a bond there and there's a legal bond there. And you can't change who your family is. Now, people say, well, there's adoption, there's all of that. Yeah, but your bloodline is still tied to that family. But bloodline is the key. And by the way, bloodline is the key here also. It's Jesus' blood on the cross. He's the one that died for you, and he's the one that says I accept you as my son or my daughter. And it says at that point, my old self, everything that I used to be has been killed. What could possibly make it come back to life? You? I don't think so. My old self has been crucified with Christ, in Christ, through Christ. It is no longer I who live, but it's Christ who lives in me. Can you reverse that? You didn't do this in the first place. He did. So I live by this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God who loved me and he gave himself for me. Why trusting him? Because I don't trust myself anymore. For this very reason. When I say, God, I don't want you anymore, get out of my life, there's probably something deeper going on. And we have this feeling that God says, okay, I guess I have to leave, or his feelings are hurt now because, I told him I don't want him here anymore. And, I'm glad that my parents, and I'm sure it must have hurt them whenever I said something like that. But they didn't stop being my parents. They understood that there was a deeper distress that caused this unclear thinking. There was confusion, there was distress, there was some kind of monumental breakdown that caused me to go in this direction. And God sees that in every single one of us. You say, well, what causes a person to go away from the Lord then for years and years and years? And I only have two things. One is that God's still trying to bring them back and he hasn't left them. Or secondly, that they weren't a Christian in the first place. Some people fall in love with the church. Some people fall in love with, the Bible. Some people fall in love with the whole religion aspect and don't fall in love with Jesus Christ, which is the key. It's a relationship. And so, but once we've established that relationship, no matter how religious or spiritual someone seems to be, God begins the process of transformation. And he is, as C.S. Lewis says, the hound of heaven. He'll always bring us back. Love that. I love that because I have security in my relationship with Jesus Christ. Folks, don't forget, you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.